Welcome to another episode of Coaches Corner for 2017, thanks to Richmend Residential. With me again is head coach Steve Antonelli.
Nick.
Steve, tough game last week, first loss of the season. What did we learn out of that?
We probably learnt that holding the ball, completing sets is very vital to winning games. I think in that was our little goal going into the game. I think last week we learned our lesson by doing that. I think as you would know, we're 57%, I think, for the total of the game, which is our worst for this year.
Yeah. And there's some positives that come out of it though.
Yeah, defensively we were strong. I thought we were real strong, but just sort of a bit disappointed on my side of it, where we spoke about little efforts and the little things lead to big things, and we didn't get to the big things that weekend, and sort of played into their hands a little bit at the back end.
Yeah. And this weekend we go on the road to Canberra for another trip. We've been pretty successful down there. I think we've only had one loss out of all the games down there. So what do you think is the secret to our success travelling to the Raiders?
I think it's playing in a big stadium. It sort of lifts the boys. The Canberra boys, that are part of the Mounties team, get to play in front of their own crowd, and just the couple of days away where we're together becomes a bit of a bonding type of couple of days, and I think that's a big part of it. But the biggest part is that when they're in front of the big stage, and I think it means a lot to them like that.
So it is a good trip in that respect, where we're kind of isolated from everybody else, and we do get to have that bond. So can you give us a little bit of an insight into the trip itself, the itinerary, and how we go about things?
Yeah. So we usually they travel here early tomorrow morning, and then from there they go into our motel, into the motel, and then from there we train at one of the local clubs, one of the Canberra local clubs that they own. And from there we have a bit of a tea, and a bit of presentation, and a bit of a get together, and we moved into the next morning where we have brekkie. It's all sort of, I don't know, it's a bit sort of NRL surreal type of thing for them, being away and being part of the group. But and as the day gets closer and closer, I think it becomes more prevalent that we're on the big stage and that they have to perform. So, which that's what it's all about for them blokes. It's good playing at our home ground here at Auburn Coach, but to play in front of the big blokes, in front of the NRL, with Ricky watching the Raiders boys, and it means a lot to them.
And so training at Raiders Belco tomorrow.
Correct.
What time's that?
4:30. We have a little video session, and then we probably spend about 40 minutes on the field as a group, and then from there we have tea upstairs and a bit of a bond.
And that could be an open training session for anybody down in Canberra who wants to come.
Yeah, everyone's quite welcome. We get a few local Canberra people come down, so they're all welcome tomorrow there. I think it's West Belconnen Club.
Belco, yep.
At Holt there, and if you're all welcome to come down and have a look and introduce yourself and come in and be part of it.
And it's always an exciting time to play in front of the NRL team, whether it be at Canberra or at any of the other stadiums. Yourself, you've been down in Canberra for a couple of years now. Can you give us a bit of an insight into your bond with Ricky Stewart, the head coach of the Raiders?
Yeah, no, we're pretty good mates. Me and Stick, I've sort of known him since I was 19, 20, so it goes back a fair way. But I know I live with Dean Pay down there while I'm down there Monday to Thursday with his family, and Mick Crawley's part of the group. We're all pretty close mates. I think that's why it's a strong sort of relationship between us and Canberra, with me sort of toing and throwing with both. And I learn all my stuff off them blokes and try to bring it back here, so we're more professional back here. So, but Stick, he's just he's like us, Mick, down to earth, and loves his footy, competitive like all of us, and just wants to win.
And how did that bond come along? You're 19, 20 years old?
Yeah, no, we played a bit of footy together in Australian schoolboys, Australian under-21s, rugby union, and did a few tours together over New Zealand, which was great for me. And ever since me and Stick become part of Canberra, become great mates again.
Okay. And so looking forward to this week, Wenty. They've got a pretty good team on paper, so have you identified any of their danger men?
Oh, they've got a few back from NRL. Robson's back, and O'Brien, but they're pretty strong across the park. They have a lot of NRL experience across the park, so it's not so much worrying about one player. This week's all about us, worrying about what we need to do. I think if we can be, how would I say, very clinical is the word, I suppose, and what we need to do, I think we'll come away with a win. But it's going to be a tough encounter. They've only won, I think, maybe 1 out of 4, but they've got plenty of experience there, and it should be a good tussle.
And just finally, without giving too much away to the opposition, what are we going to do this week to try and get the win?
Oh, I think the first and most important thing is hold the ball. As you stand next to me on the weekends, I think that's the first thing we can get ourselves every chance of winning. I think that's a big thing in our competition. We don't have to be too fancy. It's just doing all the little things right and make sure we get a chance to get to the big things and get to where we can attack and things like that. So not too much about them, it's more about us this weekend. That's what I'm concentrating on.
Okay. Well, Steve Antonelli, thanks again for your time, and thanks again, once again, to Richmend Residential for their partnership. Until next week, it's Coaches Corner signing out.